You're listening to the Storied Coaching Podcast with Aaron J. Jacobs, episode number 100. This week, we're talking all about the Hawthorne Effect and how it can help you and the others around you. Forward.
What if you could rewrite your current story? How would you spend your time? What would your career or business look like? What kind of life would you design? Welcome to Storied Coaching, the podcast for high-performing leaders that provides you with tools and insights for building a thriving business that fuels an amazing life on your terms. I'm Aaron J. Jacobs, and as a master coach and the CEO of OMH Creative and Storied Coaching, I've had the privilege and opportunity to learn what it takes to rewrite your story. It's never too late for a rewrite.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the podcast this week, fellow heroes. It is a milestone day. We have reached episode number 100. I feel like I should have like bells going off and ding, ding, dings and things like that. When I first started out, I could not have imagined that this was going to go 100 episodes. I was just trying to figure out the format and the best information to bring you and how to distill that information. And it would have completely blown my mind almost 2 years ago now that I would be at the point now where we were at 100 episodes and there was that much content and that I still have so many more ideas and so many more things that I want to bring you. So I just want to start off the episode, first of all, with a big fat thank you to any of you who have been listening. If this is your first time, or if this is your 100th time of listening to an episode, thank you. Thank you for listening and giving me your time and your feedback. And a lot of you, thank you for giving me the texts and the reviews and all of the love that you have shown for the stories and the theories and the information that as I find it, I share and give to you as well. Thank you so much for your attention and for being here and listening, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're getting this. Thank you for being here. And I thought this was the perfect time, since we are at episode number 100, this is the perfect time to talk about how you have affected me and how you can have an effect on your organization. A lot of you are leaders. A lot of you are business owners or are professionals, are leaders that lead teams in and around your life. And some of you, even if the only team that you are leading right now is the team of your family or being the leader in your friends group, that's fine as well. It's a perfect time to talk about the Hawthorne Effect. Now, the Hawthorne Effect is called the Hawthorne Effect because the subjects of there was an experimental study that happened in the 1920s and 1930s. And it was actually coined because it was at Western Electric's factory in the Hawthorne suburb of Chicago in the late 1920s and early 1930s. Now, the whole purpose of this study was to study the phenomenon of if something is observed, will it improve? And they had all kinds of different things that they were using at this electric factory where they made all kinds of electronic components to see if by changing different things in the environment that they could get more productivity and have their workers have a higher sense of well-being and teamwork and all that kind of stuff, that it would be a great place to work and that their productivity would increase. So they tried lots of different tweaks and things and then observed from a scientific standpoint what worked. And so at this location where the experiments took place in Western Electric's Hawthorne Electric Company, just outside of Hawthorne, Illinois, the electric company had commissioned research to determine if there was a relationship between productivity and work environments. Okay, so very scientific, and this is from the 1930s, 1920s, and 1930s, but it still stands up today. So the electric company had commissioned research to determine if there was a relationship between the productivity and work environments, and the original purpose was to examine how different aspects throughout the workday of changes had on worker productivity. All right, so the most famous of the experiments, the focus of the study was to determine if increasing or decreasing the amount of light, which is perfect at an electric factory, that workers received would have an effect on how productive workers were during their shifts. So they tried several different things. In the original study, employee productivity seemed to increase due to the changes, but then decreased once the experiment was over. And they thought that was weird. And they tried this in several different aspects. That was the strange thing. So some of the researchers found that almost any change to the experimental conditions led to increases in productivity. For instance, here's what I mean by that. And this is super, super interesting. For example, productivity increased when illumination was decreased to the levels of candlelight. So when they made it all like cubby wubby womb room and had candlelight and did their work for a shift, productivity went up. And they were like, okay, I guess lowering the light would be better for productivity. But then they stopped observing it, and productivity, even in candlelight, went back over several weeks to the same levels. And they're like, why did that happen? So then they went ahead and increased the light. And while they were doing the study for those several weeks, productivity went back up again. And then when they stopped observing it and didn't have researchers in there kind of observing things, again, productivity went back to around the same levels, even though they kept the illumination at the new levels, the brighter levels. So they tried this with lots of different things. They even tried this with breaks. They gave them more breaks and productivity went up, and then it went back to normal. They gave them less breaks, and then productivity went up, and then it went back to normal. And what they finally realized is they even tried lengthening the workday and shortening the workday. And in every case, went up for a little while, then went back to basically the same baseline again. The researchers concluded that what the piece that they were missing was that workers were responding to the increased attention from the supervisors. Because each time that these researchers would come in, let's picture white lab coats and clipboards, and they would come in and they'd be watching things. Also, their supervisors made themselves more available to be able to answer questions, to pitch in and help, to just be more present in general. And I'd like to point out here that it isn't that they were being observed like Big Brother. It was that the supervisors were actually there to help facilitate the experiment. So to be helpful, to place those candles, make sure that they were lit. If they were giving more breaks, to be there to help facilitate the breaks and make sure they had what they needed at the breaks, things like that. It was that the people that were being observed felt that they were getting more attention, that they were actually had people that were, for lack of a better word, cheering them on in the true sense of what managers should be, what leaders should be, which is to actually be a servant leader, to be helping people to increase their productivity in the end, but really it's to help support them to grow themselves. Because when you help grow people, when you help them grow, then their productivity goes up because they're skilling up. You're teaching them things that maybe you've learned along the way. You're mentoring them. They're getting that new skill set. And so their productivity goes up. So the Hawthorne effect, sometimes I've heard people confuse the Hawthorne effect with if something is observed, then it increases. And it's not that simple. Because if you just watch something, people might change their behavior for a certain amount of time, but they also start to resent it. For instance, think of the last time that you were in a store like Home Depot or something like that, and you're on an aisle and you're looking at something and you look up and there's a like flashy light or something and it goes, smile, you're on camera. So yeah, people's behavior does change. I guess if they were going to think of stealing in that aisle, maybe they'll give it a second thought, but also it has a negative effect, right? When someone's just watching you, but it's from a negative standpoint, like we're watching you because we don't trust you, that's not the same thing. You're not going to see the same positive effects in people because of the fact that you are doing it from a negative viewpoint, a negative perspective. You are assuming that they are doing something incorrectly and that you're going to watch them because of it. That is not the true Hawthorne effect. It could give people maybe there are statistics that show when they put those cameras in. And also there have been studies I've seen as well where, for instance, when they put cameras in the washing stations at hospitals, that nurses and doctors and nursing staff are 55% more likely to wash their hands, which is, I hope that in my mind, they wash their hand 100% of the times, like several times a day, but they track that they wash their hands more when they put it at the wash stations. I'm talking about, by the way, right now, they didn't put them in the bathrooms. At least I hope so. That would be a little bit inappropriate. But this is what I want to point out for the Hawthorne effect. So that whole story is to show that when something is observed, but supported, that's when productivity goes up and stays up. There are variables like lighting and breaks, and we can talk about the length of a work day. And if you want to move your company to a 4-day work week instead of a 5-day work week, there's all kinds of different ways to play with productivity. But in the end, the Hawthorne effect has shown us that if you give support to your people, and if you feel like you are receiving support, attention in the form of true servant leadership, managers that really care, that don't just, I'm a manager and so I just farm my work out so that I don't have to do it. I'm not really there supporting people. That's not a true manager, is it? And we've all had that kind of leader and that kind of manager, and nobody really likes it. We tolerate it until we have to move on to the next role. But those aren't the people that we're going to go to bat for, because they make our life miserable. They micromanage us. They're not there to give attention to us to help us grow. They're there just to point out mistakes. And I don't know about you, but that never works for me. I bristle at that so hard. So the Hawthorne effect, this is what I want you to start thinking about. How could you use this in your own life and with your own company in your private life as well, in order to create better results for yourself? Now, I know that this is something that has helped me because there's different ways to look at the Hawthorne effect. So the Hawthorne effect, definitely when someone is being observed, like in the examples I already gave, and they're being supported, attention is being paid to them, productivity goes up. The same thing has happened to me by doing this podcast. So the first 2 or 3 episodes, I knew that I was doing this mostly just for myself. I had some things that I wanted to say and some knowledge that I wanted to share. But as I got into each episode and we got further and further along to 10 and 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 episodes, there were people that had come back, that had observed me and given positive feedback that, hey, this has helped me in this way. Hey, when you talked about this, I was able to apply it. And so when I get the feedback that someone's paying attention and that it's helping them and that I'm getting attention because of the fact that that feels good, that I'm helping someone else, it encourages me. That Hawthorne effect, like a flywheel, encourages me to keep going. What other topics could I explore? If they really liked that topic and I got a really big response in the YouTube comments on that one, I have something else I can talk about that's like that also might be helpful to people as well. I didn't realize that so many people wanted to hear about that. So the Hawthorne effect for me, for this podcast, has been really helpful. I know that I'm being observed, which also has me make time on my calendar each week to set aside with a block of time each Monday to record this and to make sure that it gets out to you on time on Wednesday. That positive feedback, that attention that you've been giving me encourages me to do this. So there are several different ways that you can apply the Hawthorne effect in your own life. And now I'll just give you some examples of different industries and how you might be able to apply this, and then a couple examples for yourself as well. I find that helpful. That way, my challenge for you this week would be to go and see if there's a way to apply this in your own life. And it might be easier than you think. This might be something you're already doing in your family, you just didn't realize you were doing, and you just might be able to do it more intentionally and get better effects for yourself and for your family or for your professional life. So here are some examples of how to apply the Hawthorne effect in your life. For instance, in healthcare, they had a study that found that dementia patients, I found this so interesting, dementia patients, so people that have trouble with location and where they are and who they are and all kinds of things they're dealing with, horrible disease. But those patients who received more intensive follow-up care from healthcare professionals showed better cognitive functioning. How amazing is that? Their dementia actually improved because of the fact that their follow-up care was more intensive and was more personal from healthcare professionals. In education, students may perform better, that they have seen, when teachers get regular feedback from their colleagues that they respect and admire on their teaching methods. When they feel like they have a mentor, educators, their students perform better because they feel like they're getting attention, they're improving their skills, and then that inspires them to be a better teacher. Amazing. I love this. I love this flywheel effect, that when people are getting help and getting attention paid to them, that it helps people downstream as well that they interact with on a daily basis. And just in the workplace, like a common workplace environment. So employees may work harder and be on their best behavior when a supervisor is paying attention to them. Again, I want to be very specific about the difference between, as an employer, your people working harder and being on their best behavior when you're paying attention to them, not when you just put cameras everywhere. Okay? Because I've seen this. I've seen people twist this concept, the Hawthorne effect of, okay, if I just have cameras everywhere, people will be scared into doing what I want. That's not the point here. And it usually has the opposite effect. People resent you for not trusting them, and then they will look for ways to not do what you want them to do. Crazy, right? But it's totally true. Show people that you don't trust them, and the amazing employees that you have will start to curdle in that environment. And you wonder why your employee retention is so bad. Why do you have so much turnover? because they feel like they're being micromanaged and watched all the time like Big Brother. Being a good supervisor is paying attention to them, help them grow. When you see something that you don't like the way that it's being done, make a video on how to do it. Say, hey, this is exactly how I want this done. Don't go and nitpick them. If they don't know how to do it correctly, it's probably a lack of management being able to supply them with the right steps in the right order in order to do the job the way that you want it done. That's on you. That's not on them. So leaders, really think about if there's something or an employee that isn't doing something the way that you want, you really can't blame them until you've armed them with exactly the way you want it done. Standard operating procedures, SOPs, and especially if you can do it in video form, that really works. A play-by-play. This is how I want this done. Then they can follow the script until they learn it, and then it becomes second nature. And then all of a sudden, people are doing things exactly the way that you want. It really works. Try it out. Not Big Brother watching them. It just doesn't work. People bristle at that. Humans do not like it. So leaders, think about what aspects of your own life, heroes out there, everyone listening to this podcast, what are aspects of your own personal or professional life that could benefit from your attention? Is there a team member currently, if you're a manager or a director, a leader in some way, that's on a PIP, that's on a personal improvement plan? Okay. Are there ways you could be mentoring them? Did you just put them on a PIP and go, hey, improve or you're fired? Or did you step up and show them ways that they could be doing things differently? Are you giving them some time, or is their direct manager giving them time to mentor them? Let's say that they were having a problem with scheduling, with time management. Who's great at time management in your organization? Have you connected them and had them say, hey, you're really great at time management, Tim. Dave is having a really hard time with that. Could you maybe set up a couple sessions with him in order to show him how you do things? And maybe he'll get some things from you, some tips and techniques that could help him out. Are you doing that? Are you helping grow people, or are you just sending them out on an iceberg and saying, hope you survive? If not, bye. Show them by example. And in your personal life, the Hawthorne Effect can come in handy as well. You might do this at a family dinner. You might do this on a date night. But for example, like if you had a weekly date night where you share your experiences from the week with each other in the form of, if you ever played Rosebud Thorn, most of you have heard of that. If you haven't, you can look it up, but it's basically, what's your rose of what this week was your rose? Like, what was something amazing that happened to you, and share that. And then what's your bud? What's the thing you're looking forward to next week? Something that you're excited about that's coming up. And then finally, what was your thorn? What was something that really bothered you this week, or that wasn't the best, and that maybe you might have learned something from? Okay. Rosebud Thorn, just a way to share your week a little bit. And by paying attention to each other when you're sharing that information, that can be the Hawthorne Effect as well. People become more aware of what they're grateful for, their rose, what they're looking forward to, their bud, and maybe can put their thorn in a different perspective that isn't quite as thorny, that isn't quite as painful, by the fact that you're sharing those experiences with each other. So those are some examples of how you might be able to use the Hawthorne Effect in your own life. Now, other than that, I just want to again say thank you. This is all about gratitude this week. I just feel so grateful that any of you that are listening to this episode that have gotten any goodness out of the last 100 episodes, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the feedback that you've given me. Thank you for allowing me to grow and make mistakes and come back and hopefully be better the next time. I appreciate each and every one of you that listens now and that might find this in the future. And I wish you all the best. I wish you all the best for growing in your own ways, whether it's through the Hawthorne Effect, writing your own story, getting your hormones in order, whatever it is that I can help talk about and give you more information on. I just wish you the best so that you can write your own journey, your own story, and keep reinventing yourself until you get to the point where you are just delighted with your life, in your personal, your professional life. If you're growing a business, if you're trying to change your body, whatever you're trying to do. Thank you for letting me be part of that journey and helping you write that story. Until next week, my friends, have a fantastic week. I'll talk to you soon. If you are a man interested in learning more about testosterone optimization and other cutting-edge wellness therapies coupled with high-performance coaching, you have to check out olympusmen.com. There you will find out more about how to work with us, as well as a free guide that will answer everything you always wanted to know about testosterone therapy and if it might be right for you. Head to olympusmen.com right now to learn more.
Thanks for listening to Storied Coaching with Aaron J. Jacobs. If you want more information or resources from the podcast, visit us at storiedcoaching.com.